The Denver Broncos are in a position where they really could use some help at the wide receiver position. Yes, trading Tim Patrick may have been a mistake. I understand that there are some people that are split on that, but at the end of the day, the Broncos did take away a productive receiver from this receiving core. And last week, it all came to a head when Courtland Sutton had 3 catches for 60 yards, and the rest of the wide receivers, they put up a big old goose egg. They didn't have any production whatsoever. In fact, a couple receivers had receptions for negative yardage. That's not good. The Broncos need somebody else to step up. And I do believe that they like who they have in that room in terms of Courtland Sutton, in terms of Josh Reynolds. They're hoping that Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin can get going. They should have Devon Vele back this week, so that is going to help as well. Devon Vele was their leading receiver in week 1, but the Broncos still don't have a true number 1 receiver on their roster. Courtland Sutton has proven that he's a good number 2, he's a good Robin, but he's really not a Batman. There could be a receiver who, yes, he is aging, but he could be a big-time addition to this offense, at least for these first couple of years of Bo Nix's development, and he could give Bo Nix some real security and some real comfort if the Broncos were to trade for him. And by the title, you guys already know who I'm talking about. I am talking about Tennessee Titans wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. I want to bring in this tweet. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported on TV today that DeAndre Hopkins could be a name to watch leading up to the trade deadline. The Tennessee Titans are currently sitting at a point where they've only won 1 game this year, and it was against the Miami Dolphins, where the Dolphins played horrible football. It wasn't like the Titans went out there and played world-beating ball. They played most of the game with Mason Rudolph at quarterback after Will Levis got injured, and he could have probably gone back into the game. I think Levis was basically benched for Mason Rudolph in that game. And DeAndre Hopkins this year, with a very bad quarterback situation, is kind of struggling to put up numbers. He's only got 10 catches in 4 games for 121 yards. I'm not thinking that Hopkins is on some decline, even though he is 32 years old. I think that he still is playing at a high level. The problem is he's being held back by a very subpar quarterback situation. I believe Will Levis is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL right now, and Mason Rudolph was only a slight upgrade. The Titans are at a point where they probably aren't going to win a whole lot of games this year. Brian Callahan is already showing signs that he might not be the coach of the future for this team. So Hopkins might want his way out of Tennessee. And if so, I think the Denver Broncos could be a team that could be heavily interested in DeAndre Hopkins' services. I've heard some rumors about Amari Cooper. I've heard some rumors, at least from fans anyway, about Devontae Adams. I don't think either one of those are realistic, especially Adams. Adams is not going to get traded to an AFC West rival. He's going to get traded to most likely the New York Jets or possibly the New Orleans Saints. I think that if the Broncos want to target a receiver who can still bring you wide receiver 1 level production but isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg, DeAndre Hopkins could be your best bet. He's set to make under $9 million this year, and I think that the Broncos could fork over a good chunk of that salary and maybe send over a 4th-round pick to Tennessee, and the Titans would be able to recoup some draft capital for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think that really DeAndre Hopkins is demanding to get out of Tennessee or anything like that, but if they continue to lose football games, then the Titans could easily be sellers at the deadline, and the Broncos could easily pick up the phone and say, hey, DeAndre Hopkins, come on over, buddy. I think Hopkins would be a great fit here in Sean Payton's offense. I think that Courtland Sutton could in turn be moved to the Z. DeAndre Hopkins would be your X. He'd be lining up off the ball or on the ball, getting press coverage. And then you could move Courtland Sutton off the ball where you could put him in motion a little bit more. You could also get him more free releases off the line of scrimmage, and he wouldn't have to deal with as much press coverage. Even though I think Sutton's good at press coverage, I think DeAndre Hopkins is even better. Hopkins could easily be the missing piece that this receiving core needs, and I think that the Broncos should definitely give a call to the Tennessee Titans and see if Hopkins is available. I don't know if the Titans are ready to be sellers at this point. They are obviously coming off their first win of the season, but like I said earlier, it's not really an impressive victory against the battered and honestly just deceased Miami Dolphins. I think that if they go out there and they get a win against a more worthy opponent and maybe stack some momentum that way, then maybe they'll be less inclined to be sellers at the trade deadline. But right now, Tennessee does not look like they're going to go very far this year. Might as well offload some of these aging veterans and go with more of a youth movement on that team. See who's going to be part of what's looking like a long-term rebuild. DeAndre Hopkins wants his best chance to win a championship, and not saying that Denver's even close to a championship team, but they could be a playoff team this year with how good their defense is, and DeAndre Hopkins would certainly be a helpful addition to this offense and a helpful addition for Bo Nix. All right, Broncos country, I am curious, how would you guys feel about a potential trade for DeAndre Hopkins, and what would you be willing to give up to get him? For me, I'm not willing to give up more than a third-round pick given his age, but I even think you could probably get him for a fourth-round pick. I know that there would be other suitors out there if DeAndre Hopkins were formally listed on the trade market. Kansas City Chiefs would certainly be one of them. KC was in the mix to get DeAndre Hopkins when he first signed with Tennessee. There were rumors about him possibly getting traded there this past offseason. They need receiver help as well. So the Broncos might have to outbid Kansas City to get DeAndre Hopkins, but I could easily see the Broncos being interested heavily in Hopkins. Drop those comments down below, guys, and let me know your thoughts on a potential Hopkins trade, though. As always, guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.